7 bone-chilling true stories of the neighbor who haunts you at midnight. The midnight air hung heavy with tension as shadows loomed over the quiet streets of Maplewood. A piercing scream sliced through the stillness, sending chills down the spines of those who lay tucked under their covers. Neighbors whispered rumors of strange happenings, the kind that kept people wide awake at night. Weren't they all just a little too peculiar? Did anyone dare to knock on the door of their enigmatic neighbor down the street, Mr. Aldridge? He was an old man with eyes like empty wells and a grin that sent shivers down the spine. Tall and stooped over, he moved through the neighborhood like a phantom, silent, unsettling, always watching. His house, cloaked in shadows, emitted an eerie glow that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Neighbors recalled the nightlights flickering as if sending warnings to those brave enough to approach. And why did he always sit in that damn rocking chair on the porch at midnight, swaying back and forth like a cemetery ghost? Was he waiting for something? Or someone? It was as if secrets nestled behind the peeling paint of his home, secrets that were best left undisturbed. Curiosity bubbled around the neighborhood. Kids dared each other to approach the lawn, but no one had the guts, not after Tommy Thompson vanished one summer night, never to be seen again. The last thing people heard was Tommy's laughter trailing off as he ran towards Aldridge's house. The thought alone haunted the community like a curse. One fog-laden evening, the desperate howl of a dog echoed, dragging everyone outside. They gathered, shaking their heads, looking over at Aldridge's house. What could they do? Some whispered that the old man had made a pact with darkness, feeding off the very fear he instilled. Each raised eyebrow exchanged silent fears. Suddenly, lights flickered and silence fell. It felt like a heartbeat, tense and waiting. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the murmur of onlookers faded, a thump echoed from inside the house, a sound heavy like dread itself. The doors creaked open, spilling out a dim light that flickered ominously. Was Aldridge inside? What did he keep hidden? The crowd stirred, breathless, watching. Eyes darted toward the shadows pooling around the porch, peering in expectantly. Suddenly, a shape moved behind the frosted glass, tall, lumbering. A chill gripped the air, heartbeats cranking faster as fear clawed at everyone's throats. And just as quickly as it started, the window darkened. Dread tightened every stomach in the gathering. Was something sinister brewing? Or was it simply the thrill of the unknown driving them all into madness? It felt like a dare. They just had to find out what secrets Mr. Aldridge was hiding. The air crackled with anticipation as the last flicker of light from Aldridge's house extinguished, plunging the gathering into darkness. Whispers morphed into a low murmur, uncertainty curdling in the chests of everyone present. They were drawn like moths to a flame, unable to resist the pull of the unknown, yet terrified of what they might find. "Did you see that?" Someone blurted out, voice trembling. A few nodded, eyes wide, and others exchanged nervous glances, questioning their own senses. But everyone felt it, a primal urge compelling them closer. No one wanted to be the coward who backed away. So, with bated breath and trembling legs, the crowd crept toward the ominous structure. The jagged silhouette of the house loomed above them, cloaked in a shroud of night. Drawn by curiosity, Jody, a daring girl with a reputation for recklessness, stepped forward, her footsteps crunching on the gravel. "I'll go peek inside," she called, throwing caution to the wind as she grasped the rusted gate, shoving it open with a screech. "Don't!" Another classmate shouted, but Jody pressed on, unyielding. As she approached the door, the weight of every pair of eyes felt challenging. Her hand gripped the cold doorknob, hesitating for just a moment, a glance back filled with doubts. What's the worst that can happen? She whispered to the night, more for her sake than the crowd's. With determination, she turned the knob. The door creaked open, revealing a darkness that stretched into infinite possibilities. The air inside was stale, carrying scents of decay. She took a hesitant step, the floorboards groaning beneath her, each creak echoing ominously. A chill wrapped around her like an icy embrace, but she pressed forward, heart pounding as adrenaline surged. "Jody! Come back!" Someone shouted from the porch, but she was enthralled by the murky abyss before her. The dim light from outside barely illuminated the room. Shadows danced wildly across the faded wallpaper, twisted figures that could be anything, or nothing at all. As she ventured deeper, her foot caught on something heavy. She stumbled, catching herself just before falling. Bending down, she discovered a worn-out teddy bear, its button eyes dull and empty. It was a remnant of innocence in this house of horrors. She felt a pang of sorrow wash over her who had left it behind. Why was it here? Suddenly, footsteps echoed from the back of the house, a slow, deliberate rhythm that sent a shockwave of fear up her spine. It felt like a heartbeat, strong and foreboding. Jody's breath quickened as she sensed a presence, the air thickening around her. "Mr. Aldridge?" She called out, the name slipping from her lips like a prayer. Silence swallowed her words whole, the house pulsing with a tension that felt alive. She ventured further, every fiber of her being screaming to turn back, but she stepped cautiously toward a door at the end of the hallway. Just as she reached for the handle, a muffled voice emanated from the darkness, a raspy, chilling sound that made her skin prickle. "Come closer!" Panic struck like lightning. What had she awakened? She could taste fear in the back of her throat as the icy grip of reality set in. Jody spun on her heel to run, but the shadows coalesced, reshaping around her, blocking her path. The door slammed shut behind her with a deafening bang. Fear coursed through her veins, and she screamed, her voice lost against the walls that seemed to mock her terror. Outside, the horrified crowd waited, their eyes glazed with dread. "Did we lose her?" someone whispered. And then, just as abruptly as the night had begun, a low, haunting laugh erupted from within the house, a sound that echoed with the inevitability of something sinister at play. What fate awaited Jody? Would she escape the clutches of the darkness? Or would she join the ranks of those who had disappeared into Aldridge's haunted past? Only the night had the answer. Jody pressed her back against the cold, hard wall, her heart racing like a drum in her chest. Every creak of the house felt like a whisper from the other side, mocking her courage. The voice, with its rasping undertones, still echoed in her ears. "Come closer," she fought with herself. Was it a trick of her mind? That familiar instinct kicked in, that primal urge to run, but where? The shadows thickened, swallowing the light from the room and suffocating her will to escape. "Stay calm," she whispered to herself, her own voice sounding foreign in the oppressive silence. The darkness seemed to hiss around her, swallowing her words. Clenching her fists, she forced her legs to move, inching toward the door, but it remained shut, stubborn and unyielding. Behind her, the sound of footsteps grew louder, echoing with a sickening familiarity. Something was coming to greet her, and it was no friend. Jody's breath hitched, and a sob threatened to break free, but she swallowed it down, choking on her own fear. Suddenly, the air shifted. A gust of wind swept through the hallway, making her shiver. The shadows stretched and twisted. That's when she saw it, a flicker of movement at the edge of her vision. Her heart leaped. Was it a trick or reality? She turned slowly, dread curling within her. A figure stood in the far corner, obscured by shadow, yet unmistakably watching her, something both human and monstrous. Jody's mind raced, frantically searching for an escape. "Who's there?" she croaked, her voice barely a whisper, wavering in the tremors of her fear. The figure remained silent but took a step forward, a sliver of moonlight illuminating its face. It was older, the skin drawn tight across sharp bones. Hollow eyes stared back, depthless and void. Jody felt herself wobble, the sight pulling her closer to the precipice of panic. "Leave," the figure rasped, voice thick like tar, "while you still can." Every word felt like an urgent warning, yet every instinct begged her to flee. But she was paralyzed, trapped in the web of fear. Was this Mr. Aldridge? Or was it something far worse, an echo of him, a remnant of his darkness lurking in the shadows? Behind her, an unsettling crack startled her, breaking the paralysis. The door had shifted slightly. Jody dashed back toward it, pushing with all her might. It budged but wouldn't give. The figure advanced, and with every step, the air grew heavier, suffocating. "Let me out!" she cried, desperation clawing at her voice as she grabbed the doorknob, twisting and pulling with frantic energy. The figure behind her stopped, and for a moment, silence blanketed the air. "Jody, Jody." It mimicked, sounding casual and chilling all at once, "You can't escape what's been sealed here." Those words slipped into her mind like poison, freezing her blood. She turned again, willing to face whoever or whatever it was. But the room was empty now, or at least it looked it. Only the shadows remained, weaving in darker patterns against the wall. With renewed determination, Jody slammed her shoulder against the door, and it burst open. She tumbled onto the porch, gasping for air, pushing herself up to run toward the front of the house. The crowd stood there, faces ghostly pale. "No, Jody, don't go back," someone shouted, but it was too late. The door swung shut behind her with a finality that made her skin crawl, trapping whatever horrors lingered inside. Something in the darkness whispered her name again, weaving through the air, filling her with dread. With frantic eyes, she turned to the waiting crowd. "We have to leave. Something's in there." Then, silence, thick and oppressive, settled in as they all took a collective breath, struggling to comprehend the pulse of terror that flowed from the house. "Are we safe here?" someone finally asked, the disbelief etched into their expression. But deep down, Jody knew the answer. An unsettling sense of foreboding rested over them, heavier than the night itself. The laughter rippled through the air once more, this time closer, raspy and echoing in a way that promised no escape. What had she awoken? And who was left waiting in the darkness, eager to join her? Next chapter loomed like a ghastly shadow, set to reveal the dreadful secret hidden behind Aldridge's haunted walls. The crowd shuffled uneasily, glancing back at the house, its windows now dark and uninviting. Jody's heart thudded in her ears as she turned to face them, desperation clawing at her throat. "I swear, I heard it. I saw someone or something." "It's just an old house, Jody. This is all in your head." A woman in the back chimed in, her voice laced with skepticism. "No. It's not." Jody shot back, disbelief igniting a fire deep within her. "You didn't see the way it moved. We have to do something, maybe get a flashlight or Jody." "Enough." An elderly man interrupted, placing a strong hand on her shoulder. "You're too rattled. We need to stay together. This isn't a joke." But even as he spoke, shadows from the house seemed to lengthen, creeping toward them like fingers seeking to ensnare. The air around them grew thicker, a quiet tension pulsing just beneath the surface. A murmur spread through the crowd as they stared at the building, its oppressive silence swallowing their whispers. The moonlight cast ghostly shapes across the yard, and Jody could feel the weight of unseen eyes boring into her. As she pressed her fingers against her temple, trying to chase away the sudden pounding headache, she felt a tremor run through her. "We need to call the police," she managed to say, her voice shaky, but it felt like an echo of futility in the wavering air. Another person piped up, "But we can't just leave it there." "What if stay calm?" The elderly man's voice cut through the swirling chaos. He turned to Jody, a deep concern etched on his face. "You're in shock. We'll get you home. You're safe now." But safe? The word felt like a fragile illusion, and Jody felt the creeping dread from within the house insidiously multiplying, clawing at the corners of her mind. "No, I can't leave." Not like this. Just then, a chill swept past her, as if the very air had shifted. The dark wood of the house seemed to shudder, and in that instant, the door once sealed the remains of Mr. Aldridge's whispers emanated from the cracked frame. "Jody," came that scratchy voice again, now a sweet lull, curling around her. She recoiled at the sound, feeling the pulse of energy surge through the crowd. Faces turned pale, jaws tightening in fear. "Did you hear that?" Someone gasped. "What is it?" Another voice trembled, but Jody stood frozen, chest tight, as a memory surged forward. Mr. Aldridge was obsessed with the past. He documented the strange happenings in this house, she muttered, piecing together the fragments of her fear. He thought he could keep something locked away. "We can't just stand here," a man said, edging closer to the house. "If there is something wrong, we need to know." "No!" Jody yelled, panic rising again. "You don't understand." What's inside? A sudden crash erupted from within the house, sending them all reeling back. Some screamed, others gasped, but no one moved to flee. The door flew open, a rush of wind bursting forth like a desperate breath finding freedom. Jody's heart thudded harder. "We have to run." But the crowd seemed entranced, eyes drawn into the darkness that loomed just beyond the threshold. She grabbed the arm of the nearest person. "Please, we have to go." As they started to retreat, Jody glanced back one last time. A figure stood at the entrance, a tall silhouette now boldly framed in the gaping maw of the doorway. Hollow eyes sparkled ominously in the darkness. That laughter returned, piercing the veil of night like a knife, now echoing into the air around them. "You think you can leave so easily?" And just like that, the nightmare deepened. What would it take to put the shadows to rest? And did that voice mean there was no escape for any of them? The air hung heavy with dread, nearly tangible, as a low growl emanated from the figure in the doorway. Jody's breath hitched. She clung to the stranger's arm, urging them back, but they were still rooted in place, caught in a web of terror. The figure took a step forward, the shadows swirling around it like a living thing, and Jody felt her stomach drop. This was no mere trick of the light. "Run!" she screamed, her voice raw and desperate, echoing against the stillness. Finally, the spell broke. People jerked back, eyes wide in horror, and Jody pushed through the crowd. "We can't stay here." Fear fueled her as she reached the edge of the mob. But hesitation clawed at the others, a mix of confusion and morbid curiosity chaining them in place. That voice, deep and unsettling, beckoned them further. "You want to know what lies within, don't you?" it cooed. "Come closer, let me show you." Jody turned, scanning the terrified faces around her. "You have to listen. We need to get out. Now." She gestured wildly, but fear held firm. One by one, they began to step back toward the figure, drawn like moths to a flame. "What if it's a trick?" someone whispered. "Maybe we'll find answers." Another voice countered, igniting a flicker of hope in the others. Answers for what happened to Mr. Aldridge. An icy chill clawed its way up Jody's spine. The man had vanished months ago, but his obsession had left the neighborhood shaken. Fear for their safety clashed with a dangerous intrigue, and Jody felt it. She was losing them. "No!" she cried out, now almost pleading. Mr. Aldridge didn't just disappear. He was consumed by that place. The laughter rang out again, swirling around them like a fog, thrumming with sinister intent. Jody remembered his ramblings, the stories of something lurking within those walls, something that shouldn't be disturbed. "Stop! We can't!" But before she could make another argument, the shadows lunged, stretching toward the crowd, clawing at the edges of their faces. That sudden noise, the slamming of a door, echoed from the house, amplifying the panic. Jody could feel her heart racing. The crowd exploded into a frenzy, people shoving and pushing to escape the premise of the nightmare. "Stay together!" the elderly man shouted, trying futilely to corral the haphazard retreat. But the mob was in chaos. Jody stumbled backward, but through the haze of movement, she glimpsed a figure slipping past the throng, a child, small and alone, darting toward the house. "Sam!" she shouted, recognizing him. He was the boy who lived 2 doors down, the one who always smiled too wide, as if he could see something the rest couldn't. "Sam, no." But the boy didn't hesitate. He stepped through the doorway, swallowed by darkness. Jodi's scream pierced the night as she lurched forward, instinct igniting desperation. "Stop!" she yelled, tearing through the crowd. "We can't leave him." Her voice was lost in the swell of fear, but she wouldn't let that child go alone into whatever horror awaited. As Jodi reached the threshold, the cold air swirled around her body, tugging at her clothes, urging her to step back. Shadows twisted ominously. Just as she crossed the threshold, a deafening crash boomed inside. The shadows roared, spilling forth like smoke, wrapping around her, pulling her down into the abyss. "Jodi!" The crowd erupted, but their voices faded into the howling wind. What had she done? Was there still a chance to save Sam, or had she just sealed their fates with a single step? In the heart of the darkness, a single flicker of light flickered against the dark and unsettling glow, drawing her forward, beckoning her deeper into the unknown. What had awakened within those walls? And would they dare to unravel the truth hidden in the depths? The darkness enveloped Jodi like a shroud, a suffocating blanket that pressed against her skin. She could barely make out the outline of the doorway behind her, could feel the crowd's horror lingering like a distant echo. But here, in this new realm, the air crackled with a foreboding energy. There was no escape, just the magnetic pull of that flickering light. "Sam!" she called, her voice trembling and weak, swallowed by the vastness around her. The shadows twisted and writhed, and she shivered at the thought of what might be lurking just out of sight. A distant giggle echoed, eerie and hollow. Was it Sam, or something far more sinister? Jodi invoked every ounce of courage she could muster. The flicker of light shimmered again, illuminating a narrow path through the murky gloom. Heart racing, she stepped forward, forcing herself to move despite the dread creeping in. "Stay together!" the elderly man had shouted. But they hadn't stayed together. They had left her behind. She clenched her fists, the glimmer ahead danced invitingly, a beacon amid the chaos, but with each step she took, she felt the shadows closing in once more. The air grew colder. The walls whispered secrets she couldn't decipher, scraps of words that drilled into her mind, dreadful warnings or taunting promises. She couldn't tell. Suddenly, a voice broke through the darkness, low and resonant, sending chills cascading down her spine. "Did you come to play, dear girl?" The mocking tone twisted her stomach. Jodi turned, scanning for the source but saw nothing. "Where is Sam?" she demanded, her voice rising against the silence. "There's no fun without a friend," the voice cooed, dripping with malevolence. Shadows swirled tighter, constricting around her as if the darkness itself was alive and eager to consume. The figure in the doorway flashed in her mind, that skeletal silhouette was etched there, its laughter mocking her as she trembled deeper into the dark. Jodi, there it was again, a faint voice, almost drowned in the oppressive murk. Was it Sam? She strained to hear. Jodi. Sam. Hope ignited in her. Without a second thought, she let the flickering light guide her, urgency pounding in her chest. She stumbled forward, closer to the source of that familiar voice echoing in the abyss. "Jodi, I'm scared." Tears prickled at the corners of her eyes. How could he be so close yet feel so far? "I'm coming." She rushed toward the sound, nearly tripping over her own feet, the shadows writhing in frustration, clawing at her from every direction. "Where are you?" The darkness seemed to pulse around her, and each sound took on a life of its own, a chaotically orchestrated cacophony of tittering and howls that surrounded her. Jodi willed her body forward, fighting against the encroaching fear that coated her legs like cement. Then, she saw it. A faint glow, brighter this time, illuminating a small figure huddled in the corner, trembling. Sam! As Jody rushed to him, the glow intensified, and she was momentarily blinded. The shadows hissed, breaking apart as if in protest. Then the air shifted again, thickening with a pressure that pressed against her like a winter chill. The light exploded into a sudden brilliance, and she shielded her eyes, squinting. When her vision cleared, she found herself staring at a room, the remnants of a child's bedroom long forgotten, broken toys scattered around, the walls peeling with age, a creeping sadness surging in her chest, but there was no sign of Sam. Her heart dropped. Sam? Hey, Jody, over here. She turned to see him, just a few feet away, crouched behind a dilapidated dresser. Relief washed over her, mixed with confusion. He looked fine, yet his eyes were wide with untouched terror. What are you doing? She whispered urgently, scrambling toward him, but as she moved, the shadows began to stretch again, shuddering, recoiling back toward the walls. Help me! Sam gasped as his small hand slipped through her grasp. The eerie glow wavered, casting long, monstrous shadows that reached hungrily toward both of them. No! Panic surged through her veins. She lunged forward, grasping for him, just as a powerful rumble echoed through the house. What was that? Sam shrieked. A collective dread swept over them, and the walls seemed to pulse, vibrating with a profound hunger. The shadows laughed, a symphony of voices mixing with the ominous chaos. Jody. Sam's voice trembled. The shadows loomed closer, as if ready to pull him back into their inky depths. Her heart pounded wildly as she grasped his tiny hand, determination fueling her. We have to stick together. Hold on tight. But as their fingers intertwined, a deep rumbling shattered the air again, an even more sinister echo than before. The walls began to close in, the glow dimming with each passing second. What force was awakening within these walls? What waited just outside the light, lurking in the corners of the dark, ready to take hold? The shadows writhed like living beings, hungry for the warmth of Jody and Sam. The walls trembled, and the air thickened, turning stifling as if the very house had come alive, eager to feast on their fear. Jody, I can't hold on. Sam whimpered, his little fingers slipping from her grasp. She tightened her hold desperately, panic surging through her veins like ice. I want to let go. Please. Sam pleaded, his voice breaking. The shadows, sensing his weakening grip, lunged forward, swirling around him like a vortex, threatening to drag him back into the abyss. Fighting against the suffocating darkness, Jody reflexively dove for Sam with every ounce of strength she had. The moment she let go of fear, something surged within her, not just a motherly instinct, but a fire fueled by love. You're coming back with me. With a sharp yank, she pulled him toward her just as a bone-chilling wail echoed through the room, reverberating off the peeling walls. It was a sound laced with sorrow and anger, the cries of lost souls trapped in this haunted space. Jody. Sam's eyes were wide, reflecting more than just horror. They mirrored the fear of every child ever abandoned in the dark. The pressure around them intensified, the shadows tightening their grip, growing angrier with each futile attempt to reclaim Sam. Then, as if sensing their struggle, the light returned. It shot from the remnants of a forgotten toy, illuminating their surroundings with a warm glow, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. The shadows writhed and hissed, recoiling from the brightness. Run! Jody shouted, pulling Sam along as they darted toward the flickering light. The glowing force grew stronger, illuminating the path ahead, revealing more of the room with each step they took. Dust motes danced like tiny stars around them, yet the signs of age and neglect remained, but the house had not yet given up. The walls pulsated with rage, eager to reclaim their prey. The pull of darkness tugged at them insidiously, whispering sweet nothings that threatened to lure them away from the light. Jody clenched her jaw, determining not to let fear steal her son again. Stay with me. Her heart raced as she urged him on, their footsteps echoing through the still shadows, the haunting whispers trying to drown out her voice. I don't like it here. Sam cried, glancing back, fear etched across his small face. Neither do I. Jody replied, urgency lacing her tone. She could feel the grasp of icy fingers at her back, inching closer, waiting for the perfect moment to snatch them both back into darkness. The farther they moved, the more promising the glow appeared, a siren drawing them forth. As they reached the threshold, Jody felt the sharp sting of something cold brush against her ankle. She froze at the sensation, glancing down to see shadows clawing at her, curling around her feet like serpents trying to pull her into their grasp. "No!" she shouted, pulling harder on Sam's hand. The air thickened with despair, but just as she felt the chain of darkness tighten around her, a sudden surge of warmth enveloped them, and she heard a loud crack, echoing like thunder. The walls shook violently, plaster flaking from the ceiling, the dark tendrils recoiling as though struck. "What was that?" Sam cried out, eyes wide in terror. "The light!" Jody exclaimed, understanding dawning upon her. It wasn't just any light, it was the remnants of a powerful presence yearning to protect them from the depths of this forsaken place. As they stumbled from the doorway, the sudden warmth broke the chill enveloping them, and a path opened up, leading them back into the world they had left behind. But just as they turned to escape, the room erupted in chaos. The friction of light and dark clashed violently, screaming voices wailing, warning them, pulling them back. With a sudden burst of energy, Jody propelled forward, dragging Sam with her, the shadows hissing in protest, but she would not falter again. As she crossed the threshold, she felt the last of the darkness claw at her back, tearing at her, but it couldn't. "Hold on." They burst into the light, landing on the other side, breathless and shaken. Jody felt a twinge of triumph surging through her. They had escaped, or had they? In that moment of victory, a heavy silence descended, thick enough to choke on. A low chuckle reverberated from within the darkness they had just left behind, chilling her to the bone. "You may have passed through, but can you ever truly leave?" Fear pooled in Jody's gut once more. The trap was set, and whatever had haunted them was still lurking, waiting for the next opportunity to strike. What awaited them next? Would the darkness ever truly let them go? The light that enveloped Jody and Sam felt surreal, like a fragile bubble protecting them from the horrors lurking just beyond its reach. But as they stood there, breathless and trembling, a sinister realization settled in. The chuckle echoed again, a haunting melody that played with their very sanity. "Mom, I don't want to be here." Sam whimpered, his tiny fingers gripping Jody's hand like a lifeline. "I know, honey. But we're okay now." She tried to sound reassuring, but her heart raced. The silence had an unsettling quality, a bone-deep chill that hinted at more darkness lying in wait. As they cautiously moved further into the light, it flickered, dimming just enough for shadows to creep back in. It was almost as if the house was testing their resolve. Jody glanced around, her eyes darting between still, dusty furniture and faded photographs of long-forgotten faces that seemed to watch them silently. Then she saw it, a small, black figure darting quickly across the floor, disappearing behind an old dresser. "Did you see that?" Jody's voice trembled, her instincts alert. Sam flinched, looking warily at the place she pointed. "What was it?" he asked, eyes wide with fear. "I don't know, but we need to keep moving." Jody took a deep breath, stifling the rising panic. She pulled Sam along, each step making the dust rise like spirits from the ground, swirling eerily around them. As they approached what looked like the exit, a whisper barely cut through the thick air, "You can't leave, not yet." The words slithered into her ears, icy and intimate. "Who's there?" Jody shouted, squaring her shoulders. Silence enveloped them once more, and for a moment, all that could be heard was the pounding of her heart echoing in her ears. "Mom, I'm scared." Sam clung tighter, his small body trembling. "I know," she whispered back, forcing herself to remain composed. She couldn't let her fear consume her, she had to protect him. They stepped toward the door. Jody grasped the doorknob tightly, ready to pull it open when suddenly, from behind them, a loud crash rang out. A picture frame fell from the wall, shattering on the ground, shards of glass glinting like malevolent eyes in the half-light. "What is happening?" Sam cried, and Jody's heart plummeted. "Stay close to me." She squeezed his hand, ready to pivot and face whatever had unleashed chaos. There was no time for panic. As the shadows shifted like liquid, they revealed a figure twisted and dark, its face a blur of anguish and rage. "Leave while you still can," it howled, voice sharp and cutting through the stillness. Jody felt a surge of uncertainty. "Sam, back up," she commanded, stepping protectively in front of her son. Yet the figure didn't move closer, it simply loomed there, as if rooted to the ground by its own malevolence. With each breath, the air thickened. Jody scanned the room for anything she could use. "Why are you doing this?" she challenged, your voice stronger than she felt inside. The figure shifted slightly, its gaze boring into her as if searching for something deep within her soul. "Because you cannot escape your past, it will always find you," it moaned, more anguish bleeding into its voice, pulling at Jody's heart, drawing out memories she thought she had buried long ago. "Mom," Sam whimpered, pulling at her sleeve. Something within her cracked open, fear and memories colliding. What did it mean? "There's got to be a way out," Jody muttered shakily, trying to collect her thoughts. They had fought too hard to get this far. She refused to let this specter drag them down into despair, but just when she thought she could take a step forward, the walls began to tremble again. The shadows thickened, swirling violently, circling closer as they whispered secrets of woe that seeped into her mind. "Your truth is our power," they hissed at in that moment. Jody realized the house was just a trap, it was a living entity, feeding off their fears, their unresolved pain. Suddenly, the floor beneath them began to crack, a deep fissure splitting the wooden planks, sending splintered debris flying. "Run!" Jody yelled, yanking Sam back toward the door. But the exit was shrinking, closing against them, as if the darkness would swallow them whole if they didn't act fast. She could hear the echo of the shadows laughing, a wicked sound that clawed at her resolve, taunting her final chance to escape. Would they make it out alive or succumb to the darkness that haunted them both? In that instant, Jody knew they had to face what lay behind, or be trapped forever. "Stay with me," she cried, determination flooding her veins. But as they bolted toward the door, the fear clawed at her mind. What illusions did the shadows hide? The walls trembled, screeching one last warning, and Jody's heart raced. Could they truly escape, or would they get lost in the darkness forever? With a deafening roar, the walls convulsed, splitting the air with a screech that could only come from a house born of nightmares. Jody clenched Sam's hand tighter, determination battling against the rising wave of dread. The shadows swirled around them, dark fingers reaching out, threatening to ensnare them in despair. "Mom, I can't," Sam's voice quavered, and Jody turned to meet his terrified gaze. "We have to go, now." They charged toward the door, but the air thickened, dragging at their limbs as if the house itself was trying to reclaim them. Jody reached the doorknob, twisting it desperate and fast, yet it wouldn't budge. The laughter echoed back, cruel and mocking, wrapping them in substance that froze her to the marrow. "Please," her voice broke, her breath misting in the chill. Just then, the dark figure flickered and lunged forward, its elongated shadow distorting its shape, merging with the darkness around it. Jody's heart stood still. "Let us through." "Not until you confront your truth," the figure snarled, eyes gleaming like coals. Jody felt ice invade her veins. It was right. She had been running from what she had buried, from the guilt that clawed at her heart daily. For a fleeting second, she considered surrendering to the engulfing night, letting it consume her. But not Sam. He was her lifeline, her reason to fight. "Sam, listen to me." Jody turned to her son, trying to push back the storm of emotions that flooded her thoughts. "I need you to be brave, okay? We can't let it control us." "I don't want to be brave," Sam whispered fiercely, his small frame trembling. But then Jody saw something shift in him. A spark of resolve ignited behind his tears. Holding her breath, Jody faced the figure again, defiance sharpening her voice. "You think you can scare us? You think I'll let you control my life or my son's life? You're wrong." The shadows hissed in fury, swirling faster around them, howling with gusts of wind that rattled the very foundation. "Face the choices you made. The ones that brought you here." It screeched, the sound echoing like thunder in her ears, biting deeply at her past. "No!" Jody shouted, letting emotion fuel her words. "Those choices don't define me. I will not be your prisoner." The air crackled, a charge of energy thrilling through her. The flickering light pulsed, pushing against the shadows, as if responding to her defiance. The closer she stood to her truth, the regrets, the pain, the more the house trembled in response. "Mom, look!" Sam cried, pointing at the roiling darkness. The shadows began to recede slightly as Jody steadied her breath, allowing the surge of power to fill her. In that moment of clarity, an unyielding anger blazed inside her. The darkness. It was feeding off her fear. "Sam!" She screamed, adrenaline giving her voice liftoff. "Run toward the door now." He hesitated for only a moment, then bolted. Jody followed swiftly, feeling strength wash over her as she cast her fears aside. The shadows lifted slightly, but not enough. As they fled, a harsh wind slammed against them, threatening to throw them back. Jody cried out as she felt fingers brush against her arm, cold and clammy, tugging, begging. "No! I want to be yours," she bellowed, digging her heels into the ground. But the figure emerged from the dark, looming over her and Sam, the anguish on its face morphing into a wild, cruel grin. "Your past will always haunt you." It jeered, its voice like shards of glass. That brutal truth cut deep, but Jody wouldn't let it paralyze her. "Not today," she yelled, feeling her heart pound with every syllable. As they finally reached the doorway, Jody hurled herself against the barrier, feeling the reassuring coolness of the doorknob in her hand. Determination hadn't just filled her, it blazed. The door groaned under her pressure, but there was hope inside. For every step away from that dark figure, the shadows shrank back until all that was left was a flicker of light, leading them out of the chaos. When the door finally yielded, Jody pushed through, pulling Sam with her, just as a frantic howl tore through the air. They stumbled outside, breathless, the world outside sharply contrasting the horror within, a vivid world filled with light and life, but as they turned back to see the house just behind them, it was crumbling, eroding into dust, like the remnants of their fears dissolving. Yet, a deep shiver traced down Jody's spine as a cold breeze swept past. The chuckle echoed again, this time softer, but still menacing. "What now?" Sam asked, trembling again. Jody knew they weren't free yet. A new dread settled in her chest. What else would come from that house? Their escape felt too easy, too quick. Was the darkness still lurking, waiting for its next chance to strike? As they walked further away, Jody glanced back one last time, a knot tightening in her stomach. The question loomed large in her mind: what else had they stirred in the shadows? And just behind them, the whispers returned, tantalizing and sweet. "You haven't seen the last of us." Jody's heart raced as she and Sam stumbled across the yard, the weight of the darkness still thick in the air behind them. They found themselves standing in the cool night, a stark contrast from the suffocating dread that had stolen moments from their lives. She took a deep breath, willing herself to see the silver lining, but the shadows of the house loomed over them like a specter in their memory. "Mom, are we safe?" Sam's voice trembled, fear entwined with resolve. She looked down at him, his wide eyes reflecting innocence and terror. "For now, buddy, we're safe," she replied, clasping his hand tightly, her own lifeline amid the chaos. But somewhere in the rustling leaves, she felt it, a lingering presence, echoing through the air. What had they left behind? As if in response to her thoughts, a heavy fog rolled in, thickening the night around them. "What's that?" Sam asked, peering into the gray gloom. Jody could hear whispers, curling around her ears, fluttering like moths drawn to flame. Just the wind, she lied, though she felt the shiver run through her spine. Deep down, she knew the truth: the darkness inside that house had been awakened. It would reach for them again, it wouldn't let go easily. Taking a shaky step back, she turned, leading Sam toward safety. They forced their feet to move forward, away from the horror. As they reached the street, lights flickered in the homes, silhouettes barely stirring behind curtains. Jody wanted to scream, to shake them awake so they could see the lurking shadows that threatened them all. But no one was awake, no one would listen. Then, from behind them, a soft sound cut through the night's soft laughter, playful and chilling. Jody's breath caught. The shadows were whispering their names. The lure of the house, of what lay beyond those sealed doors, hung heavy in the air. They were being called back. "Mom, I don't like it," Sam whimpered, his tiny fingers trembling in her grip. Jody knelt down, looking squarely into his eyes. "You have to be brave for a little longer," she urged. "We'll find help. We want to go back there." But how could they run from something that felt rooted in their very essence? The shadows had fed, they were transformed now, claws scraping at her heart. As they hurried down the street, a flash of movement caught Jody's eye. Mr. Aldridge's house stood tall, but now it was upside down, plastered with memories and echoes of what came before. She could almost see the figure from the darkness, standing unyielding against the night sky, that wicked grin stretched across its face, mirroring her doubts. "Mom!" Sam's voice broke through her haze. He tugged her arm, and she turned to see fear etched across his small features. "What if it finds us?" Jody swallowed hard, desperation bringing a thunderous pulse to her chest. "It won't. As long as we're together." At that moment, she knew. They needed to confront their fear. Face the darkness that whispered from behind. Clenching her jaw, Jody turned back toward the house, and Sam's shocked gasp fueled her resolve. "We have to go back," she said, a defiant fire igniting in her veins. "Together." "Mom, no." Panic flared in Sam's voice, but she squeezed his hand tighter. "Trust me." They turned and walked toward the edges of their fears, heartbeats thrumming in unison, and as they reached the threshold, the chilling laughter echoed off the walls. Those walls were alive, laughing back at their bravery. With every step closer, she could feel the weight of the darkness shift. The shadows crouched, growing restless, eager. Jody gritted her teeth. "I've faced you once, and I will again," she shouted, fear and anger entwined, throwing back the darkness that threatened to pull them in. "Mom!" Sam yelped, but Jody pulled him close. "Stay with me." A deep silence fell around them, heavy like smoke in the air. She could see the outline of the doorway looming before them, and with one swift motion, she pushed through into the thick, swirling dark. The air thickened, and suddenly, the shadows surged toward them. She could feel them clawing at her, trying to drag them back. "No!" She screamed fiercely, flinging her arm in front of Sam, clearing the air, pushing through to a light that flickered just beyond the gloom. "Face your truth." The shadows screeched, a chorus of torment echoing, gnawing at the edges of her mind. "We are the sins you hide." Jody clutched Sam, their silhouettes dancing in shadows surrounding them. Bathed in the glow of luminescence, she finally confronted the truth that haunted her. She cried out, "I refuse to be your victim." The shadows whirled and screeched, angry against the defiance. Suddenly, the house groaned, vibrating with every ounce of her newfound strength. "You will not take my son." Jody's voice pierced through the chaos, ringing clear and strong. The air shimmered, brightening with her power that pulsed with newfound life against the darkness, and in that moment, the shadows began to retreat, swirling away, their laughter losing strength, weakening against the bright essence of light they had found within their hearts. Gripping Sam's hand tighter, they stepped forward into the final embrace of light. With one triumphant push, they broke free, a rush of relief washing over them as the weight of the darkness slid away, leaving them breathless but whole. The house crumbled behind them, a bittersweet descent into the grave of their fears. Yet in each heart, a small piece of the darkness lingered chilling, daunting, like a faded memory. And as Jody held Sam close, she whispered, "We did it. We faced our truth and made it home." But deep down, she knew the echoes would forever be an indelible mark, a when not if of their lives. As they stepped away from the crumbling shadows of Mr. Aldridge's house, they looked forward to a future unmarred by the whispers of the night, one where they held on to the light, together, refusing to be drawn back into the darkness that once sought to consume them. The end was just a beginning once more, the invitation to live, a chance to redefine their story in the light of day. Now here's where you come in. You need to subscribe now if you don't want to miss the next exclusive stories just waiting to unfold. Smash that like button now to help feed the algorithm. And flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this nail-biting conclusion. Have your voice heard? Your support keeps this channel alive. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this thrilling conclusion. Your engagement makes a difference, and together, we plot the course for more tales to come.